All right, ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back once again to the longest running show in the world about data. It's called DM Radio. Yours truly, Eric Kavanagh here, and I am tickled pink to have Allie Fried with me. She is with CTA, the Consumer Technology Association. They're the folks who put on this monster truck size show. There's like 150,000 people walking around here. It's crazy. You can't turn any direction without seeing cool technology, cool people, nice people, fun stuff happening. Lots of trends too. Artificial intelligence. That's the hot topic, right? The
Can't get away from
AI
it.
agents, like secret AI agents are out there. Well, they're not so secret, but they are kind of sometimes. But Allie, thank you so much for your time. It's so fun to be here. This is only your 17th show out here.
I'm a real newbie. Just
Yeah, you're a newbie.
haven't been here too much. And on top of that, was born and raised in Las Vegas. So
Nice.
growing up, I remember every year it was, the local perspective was like, stay away from the strip. Don't go down there because hundreds of thousands of people are swarming and you won't be able to get
Right.
anywhere.
Right.
So it has been, since I could walk, I feel like CES has been part of my life.
That's pretty cute. Before coming here, I interviewed a gentleman who has been to 57 CESs. He came to the first one ever. And 7 years ago, he was in the 50-year club. And he's coming here again. He's from Pennsylvania. He's a doctor, and he's actually one of the judges on the for the healthcare stuff.
Oh,
57. I'm like,
right.
dude, I'm not even 57 years old, man. I wasn't even alive. This guy's going to CES.
But that is like the thing I love most about CES is there's so many people that come year after
Right.
year after year, and it is truly a reunion. Like you
Yes.
see people that you see online and you keep in touch with them through LinkedIn or whatever, but like actually getting to see them
Yeah.
in person and give them a hug and just like talk about all the crazy stuff you're seeing. That is hands down my favorite part of CES.
And it is wonderful, and it's everywhere. I mean, I was at the Venetian all day yesterday. I has a whole separate building down the street. It's like
Yeah.
2 floors, completely chock full. All kind of good swag we got. We got cute little things from My First. Have you seen My First?
No.
It's this really cute thing for kids where they have cameras and they have like picture frames that are digital. And so what happens is your family, like your inner ring, gets access to everything that the kids do on their phones, on their little watches or whatever.
Yeah.
So grandma and grandpa can be 1,000 miles away and see the photo their grandkid just snapped.
I love
Right. And it's
that.
closed, so it's not out on Instagram or, all these public places, which,
Exactly.
hey, they're wonderful. But for kids, you gotta be careful with
Yeah,
kids
yes.
because they absorb everything.
Things are-
So don't say curse words in front of your kids. They will say them back very shortly after that. That's just one thing. We got all this great swag. And I mean, what I love is that it is the epicenter of innovation.
Yeah.
Right. This is where all big companies like LG, Samsung, all these folks, Verizon, they bring their cutting edge stuff,
Yeah.
they showcase it, and you get to see what's coming next, right?
It's amazing. And in terms of numbers, there are more than 2,500 companies showcasing their products here. It's when you kind of think about the numbers, you're like 2,500 companies. And yeah, those are from the huge name brands, Amazon, Google's, Panasonic's, LG's. But then at the Venetian has Eureka Park, and that's also one of my very favorite parts of the show because it is our startup hub. And I feel like the energy over there is just so incredible because these guys know what they're doing. They've been doing it for years and years. But these startups come in with such hopes and dreams and energy. And that's what CES is about. Like it really is.
Right.
And the success stories coming out of Eureka Park are incredible. Benji Lock launched there. Shark Tank does open call casting down there.
Wow.
Most of these big companies here in Central Hall are sending their executives down to Eureka Park to see, hey, who should we be partnering down there with? Who are we going to invest in down there? It's just, and to your point of being the entire ecosystem, it's every industry, big to small.
Right.
Every company is a technology company.
Right. Well, you're gonna love this idea I'll throw at you. I realized one time there are obviously very, very big, amazing cities in this world: Shanghai, Beijing, Rome, Paris, New York City. Lots of great big cities, business hubs, London, New York,
Yes,
etc. But what I thought to myself is, I bet you pound for pound, more business gets done in Las Vegas than any other city in the world because we get these huge conferences and everyone comes here, whether you're in healthcare, financial services, technology, whatever, they do their conferences here. And let's face it, in this digital world where we don't always meet in person, but we do sometimes.
Right.
When you meet in person, that's when you bond with people, you
Yes.
shake hands, you
Yes.
hash out deals. Maybe you'll finalize it when you get back to the office, but this is where the deals get done, right?
100%. And on that note, every attendee has an average, or I guess I should say the average attendee has 29 business meetings while they're on site.
Wow.
And I think that's such an important piece because CES is so glitzy and glammy, and you see, the news headlines and all the pictures, and those are so cool that consumers a lot of times think that they can come. Oh, can I come in and see everything, touch everything like it's a car show?
Right.
But it is industry only. You have to be certified in the industry here to do business.
Right.
So that these products can eventually make their way out to the marketplace, and then people can see, touch, and feel them in there.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, last year I went over to the LG area, and it's a big, beautiful area. And what I thought was so fascinating is they have a whole schedule now where they bring their prototypes to CES. So they have maybe like 20, 30 products they're thinking about putting into mass production, but they want to see. And so they put them at CES, and they have cameras all around, and they watch digitally, they track. How long do people stand in front of this? How long do people stand in front of that? How much of a crowd do you get here? Do you get there? And they use that data to determine what to send to production. I'm like, that is so clever, because
Brilliant.
in the manufacturing business, there's a very long tail. It's like the supply chains are very complicated. We saw, of course, with COVID, and now with war and other things. Supply chain, that's another very hot area of innovation these days with AI and machine learning and being able to kind of crunch those numbers. My point is, there's so many cool companies that use this as the centerpiece of their strategy for their product development cycle.
Exactly. There's no better testing scenario. There's no better global experiment that you could conduct that's not here.
Right.
150 countries are represented here. So,
Wow.
right. So think of the market diversity that you're not just saying, oh,
Right.
what do people in this one city like? What
That's
do
right.
people in this region, country? This is a global experience. So that's
Right.
brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant.
Isn't that clever?
Yeah,
And
I
it just
love
it
that.
shows you the power of the show, right?
Yeah.
It's not just a big room with a lot of cool stuff in it. Like, I'm a Seinfeld fan. Remember Elaine? She's like, the big salad. Like, what is that? It's a salad, and it's big. It's got a lot of stuff in it. Right? It's not just a room full of cool stuff. It's really meaningful stuff with whole a company like LG or Samsung, these guys, and you probably saw the keynote with Jensen Huang out there with all the robots.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
like,
Oh my gosh.
like, what is going on? When they start talking to you,
Crazy. It's crazy. And we see everything on the show floor, like 2.5 million net square feet of exhibit space, but there's also so many meeting rooms
right.
that are all upstairs and in these connector bridges and in these hallways. And some of them are open meeting rooms and some of them are closed
Right.
meeting rooms, because that is where like billion-dollar deals are getting written.
That's right. That's right. Well, and I noticed not just the Venetian, but all the hotels around here, companies will rent out suites just for the company to do their meetings. No one's
Yeah.
really staying there. It's just for
Right.
the meetings, hallway after hallway. You're like, oh my God.
It's incredible.
It's like a Home
incredible.
Depot times 10,000. You walk in there, you're like, oh, where on earth am I going to find anything?
Right.
Although I will say, I noticed this year they are grouping different booths by their subject area. So like age tech is a hot
Yes.
topic, right? Let's talk about that. You've got some trends going on. What are the hot trends you've seen so
I
far?
do, yeah. So we are, because the show is so massive and just can be tricky to navigate, we are trying to kind of put things together. But yeah, longevity is a kind of a macro trend that we are talking about a lot and seeing a lot about here. And how is technology helping us not only live better lives, live longer lives? And so a ton happening in the way of digital health and wellness, a lot coming post-pandemic in terms of remote diagnostics. We keep seeing, those iterations getting better, getting actual clinical quality diagnostics that are sending right back to your doctor.
Right.
I saw a ring yesterday, and now the company's name is going to escape me.
I interviewed this guy. I know you're talking about the one ring to control them all, right? You just pointed at something, you push the button.
No,
Oh, it's a different one. Oh, yeah. So, go ahead.
You go first.
So there's a guy interviewed him for one of these shows, and it's a little ring. It's for people with disabilities or like grandma and grandpa at home, and it's infrared, and it turns on any TV, it turns off any TV because they all use infrared. And also you put a little block on top of your light switch, and then it turns the light switches on and off. And then they also capture the data so that your family can have access and know, grandma usually gets up by this time and turns the
Right.
lights on, and she's not. Let's call her, see how she's doing.
Disruption to pattern.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's non-intrusive. It's not cameras or anything. It's just data about what's happening in the home. Isn't that nice?
I love that. Yeah, that's incredible. The ring I was talking about, it was an AFib detector for
Oh,
your
really?
heart on
Okay.
your ring, and it was heart attacks strike
Right.
us, when we don't know.
Right.
And it would alert emergency systems
Wow.
right away.
cool.
So I love that. Another one that I thought was really important, fall detection, right? As people are getting
Oh,
our aging populations or unstable, that you can have, again, room sensing technology, you fall, it's alerting a loved one or
Right.
emergency services,
Right.
because that's a big problem.
right. Well, it is a problem. If they're
Yeah.
living on their own, and it's wonderful that we can all be connected and know that our loved ones are doing okay without having to, pay extra money for life alert and all these different
Right.
things like that, which are good services, don't get me wrong, but the easier we can make it to stay connected, the better.
Yes.
And that's just one tiny slice of what's going on here, right? You've got all these cars out there. Self-driving cars obviously are a very hot topic.
Oh,
I'm a little leery about it still. I don't know if you've ever been in one, like if you rent one that is partially self-driving, it'll like when it takes over the steering wheel, you're like, what the hell's going on? Like, oh, geez, okay, that's the thing. Take
right,
over.
right.
Like I'm in charge here, man. Like get out of that lane. Well, there are even like some of the folks from FPT, one of our clients, they're a big Vietnamese company that are doing all kinds of interesting things in AI, and they were talking about the self-driving cars now. They're very good with the cameras at noticing when you're getting drowsy. So if you're
Right,
like,
it's
if
a
your
detection.
eyelids are kind of getting a little heavy and it'll do a ding ding, it'll start warning you.
Yes.
And I gotta tell you, that is awesome because not just drunk driving, but tired driving.
100%.
I've driven many, many miles. Like back when I was younger, I used to drive all the time. I figured out I've driven so many miles that I've driven around the world like 12 times. It's quite kind of wild.
Yeah, yeah,
And one
yeah.
time in Canada, where my friend Jim Harris is from, I was driving across Canada, and it was really late, and I started to fall asleep, and I was like, "Oh my God, I've got to
Yeah.
pull over," because you could die,
You can.
and you could kill other people. So it's like they're wonderful technologies that are very good for safety, for awareness,
Yeah.
and for nurturing. And I saw what was it? The Tombot was this cute little dog. It's like a toy dog that like just acts like real, and it's for older people with dementia to kind of keep them, a little
Active,
friend, keep them
engaged.
active,
Yes,
So there's so many
yes.
cute things that people are coming up with, and you see it here at CES, right?
On that note, so I saw a baby panda, an AI baby panda, and they had modeled exactly what I think was a 6-month-old panda. So it's built to model the exact size, the weight, the facial expressions that these bears make, like the little eyes are changing, and then you can hug it, and you feel its heart rate. Its heart rate syncs with yours. You can feed it, and at first I was like, and then I held it, and I'm like swaying. I'm like, how you doing? And my mood was instantly elevated, right?
That's
Like
cute.
it's a connection in a little bit of a different way,
Right, right.
and I think that's helpful. It's helpful to so many populations, whether you
Well,
think you need it or not.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm a huge bird fan. I'm a closet ornithologist. They would call them like the people who study birds, right?
Yeah.
And there are these bird feeders. Bird Feed was the company. I interviewed this very nice lady yesterday, Estelle, and she's behind the bird feeders. And they have these bird feeders with all these motion detected cameras on them. So when the bird lands, the camera turns on, and you see the bird like he's right in front of you, like eating his little bird feed. It's just so cute. They do slow motion for the hummingbirds, where it's like, I'm just like, come on, man.
Amazing. So there was something very similar last year at CES, and I ordered my dad, because my dad is just like you, loves bird watching. I ordered him a prototype, and it does everything like that, but then it also will identify the bird for you.
Right,
So if
right.
you don't know what
Right.
it is, we're probably talking about the same exact thing, but he sends me videos and pictures all the time from his bird buddy, and it's
Right.
fascinating.
That's so
You
cute.
get to see this like side of them that again you would never see. Like, what are they doing in a little birdhouse?
That's
And
right.
just all their manners of he loves it. He loves it. He loves it. He loves it. So
That's
get
so
yourself
cute.
one. Get
Well,
yourself
it connects you with nature, it
Yeah.
connects you with nature. You feel connected, and it's fun because otherwise you're like sitting, 45 feet away. Okay, the bird just went in the bird nest. Like, what?
Get the
Oh,
binoculars
can't see
out.
it now. Right, with the
Yes.
binoculars, right?
Yes.
Don't need that now. You got cameras right there. And like he said, they identify the bird. Like, and she uses Merlin. There's an app. You've heard of Merlin?
Yeah.
I love Merlin. We have lots of birds where our house is in Pennsylvania. It's surrounded by trees, and we're kind of near a hilltop. So we get like 8, 9, 10 different kind of birds chirping around. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, we got a starling, we got a crow, we've got a little titmouse. Who came up with that name?
Unfortunate.
I was like, what was that? but they're so cute, these little birdies. And it's like, that's just one of thousands and thousands of things. Like you say, 2,500 companies,
Yeah.
each rolling out. You got all sorts of smart vacuum cleaners and
Oh my
kitchen
gosh, I'm so
appliances
excited
and like
about-
all this stuff. Let's
Yes.
keep it clean.
Yes.
Keep it clean, automated, little Roombas.
And the Roombas now, or the other brands, are having their robotic arms, because my vacuum at home that I've had does a fine job until it runs into a sock, or
Right.
until it runs into a shoelace.
That's
That
right.
3 kids and 3 dogs, like
Oh
there's
my
some stuff
goodness.
on the floor. Now,
There's some stuff on the floor.
well done. Now we've got robotic arms that can take that sock up.
That's crazy.
I actually saw one that was like building blocks to move them out of the way. So I love it because it's giving us time back. I no longer have to vacuum
Right.
my floor. And I think that's kind of like the core piece to look
Right.
at, is how are these technologies giving us time back
Right.
to do what we want to do, or to connect with the people that we want to connect with.
Right.
I don't want to be mopping my floor. I want to be
Right.
calling my mom and talking to her.
Adorable.
Yeah.
That's very true. Well, the other thing, and we got about a minute and a half left, that I just love is, in this digital age, the data capture that you can get, whether it's when the birds come, or whether it's your heart rate or your health or your loved one's health. Like, when you can see the patterns of your behavior, and you see
Yeah.
this in your phone, right? Of
Oh, yeah.
screen time, how many steps you take, all that stuff, what gets measured gets managed. And so the more we can kind of understand ourselves, because a lot of times you just take yourself for granted, because you're just walking around doing
And it
stuff,
just happens
and
automatically.
you don't know. You're like, gosh, I do spend a lot of time in X, Y, or Z in this tab. Well, what can we do to change that?
Yeah.
Because what was it? Some famous person said years ago, if you don't have 8 hours a day to yourself, like not sleeping, you're a slave, right? So it's like, you need your time
Yeah.
to do your stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, you want to work 8 hours. You want to be by yourself or with your family, do fun things 8 hours, and then you sleep.
Yeah.
That's a
And
nice
then
life.
perfect 24-hour
That's
circle.
it. There you go.
Yeah.
24 hours, 24/7, baby. Going to Las Vegas. Well, closing thoughts from you. What should we expect later today or tomorrow?
I'm so glad you guys are here. The thing that came to mind was sleep tech. Actually, we have so much in the way to like help people sleep better, because we
Right.
are so overstimulated and doing
Right.
so much throughout our life. So
Right.
earbuds that are constantly giving you the exact environment that you need to sleep, pillows that move and adjust to help you sleep. So I think we'll end on sleep, because that's how we end our days, and that's what we need the most.
I love it. Sleep tech. This is fantastic. Allie Fried, thank you so much for your time. This is the lady. She's one of the people, Pam, Golden, Robbie Lysette. They're the ones that make it all happen. We'll be right back. You're listening to DM Radio. All right, folks, back here on DM Radio at CES, talking to lots of folks about AI, and our next guest, Andy Lin of Provoke Solutions, knows a thing or two about agentic AI, which of course is the hot topic these days. You see co-pilots, digital assistants, robots. There are different things that people call these, and there are many different versions of these co-pilots or assistants. And Andy, you were just joking before we hit the record button that you're trying to get the agents to do the really boring, tedious stuff that most people don't want to do, like testing,
That's right.
software testing. No developer wants to sit around and do testing. It's just not
That's
fun,
right.
interesting. So tell us about Provoke and how you
Yeah.
are provoking the use of AI agents.
Perfect. Thanks very much. So again, my name is Andy Lin. I'm CEO of Provoke Solutions. We are a technology services company, servicing primarily the Fortune 500 enterprises, but obviously wider range of customers than just that. So customers typically come to us to help fulfill their software development, custom application development needs. I personally have been developing software since the age of 10. It's been a childhood passion, and I'm continuing to do that. I've built a career around that. And so I've always been very, very empathetic to the developer's plight. I think there's been a meme going around where, somebody had made the quote, "I don't want the bots to be writing poetry and doing paintings while I do the dishes and fold the laundry. I want the bots
Right.
to be doing the dishes and folding the laundry so that I could write the poetry and I could create the paintings." And that's exactly the same way we look at software development. And so about 2 years ago, when generative AI became really popular with the release of ChatGPT, my team and I really honed in on, well, how can we leverage this for software development? And so the area that really started glowing red was this area of doing automated testing. Automated testing in general is one of those chore-ish, soul-sucking tasks that are critical, absolutely necessary. If you don't do it, There's critical problems that can result from that, but nobody loves
Yep.
doing it. No developer says, "Hey, I want to build a career around testing." There may be a few, so I don't mean to offend anybody, but the vast majority want to do coding. They want to do development, want to see features and functions. And so automated testing is one of those things that's been thrown around for 20 years. There's plenty of tools, Selenium, Playwright, just to name a few. But if you look at the enterprise, the adoption has always been really, really low. And the question is, why? And so the answer is really quite simple. There is a upfront level of effort, and it's not insignificant, to leverage these tools to create your first suite of automated test scripts. And that effort isn't small. It's not insignificant. It's time consuming. And again, it's nothing that, developers wake up every morning going, that's what I want to do today. And then the second problem is applications are always changing. For some organizations, that's daily. Other orgs, it's weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly. And as those applications change, those test scripts need to be maintained and need to be kept up to date with the latest and greatest set of requirements. And so that's, again, something that humans aren't particularly excited about doing. And so we invested in building a piece of IP that we call Nova. Nova is what we call a digital coworker, but industry parlance is, agentic AI. And what it does is it takes all of the effort that usually requires humans to generate these test scripts, and we can do it with our bots. And just to give some sense of scale, we have a demo that we're demonstrating here at CES where the LLM itself will say, hey, generating these test scripts is going to take 17 hours. Our bot's able to do that in 5 to 7 minutes. And so as you're an organization, you can scale that up to the number of tests you have. You can realize the time savings and the human savings, really, right, of humans now not getting to work on 17 hours of really boring, rote, mundane stuff, and they get to go work on more interesting stuff, and you leave the bots to do this. So that's a little bit about what we do.
No, it's very good. It's a very good use case. I'm really curious to understand what kind of a RAG model you have for people who don't know that retrieval augmented generation. You can use a vector database. You can use multiple layers. There's a company, Vectara Amr Awadallah, who was the CTO and co-founder of Cloudera, and now he's in that space. And they do something very clever, which is, number one, they have a sort of open book LLM approach, so they can search things and let it kind of do its magic. Number two, they reward it when it gets things right, and they punish it when it gets things wrong. So you have that sort of reinforcement learning, both in the positive and negative. And the third thing they do that I thought was very clever, and I've thought the good, smart people are going to do, is at the end of the workflow, they have a whole separate learning module, deep learning module, that steps in and analyzes the output, looks at the input and says, is this what they wanted? Yes or no? So it's sort of a check and balance, like a QA process, basically.
Yeah.
So walk us through your process. How it is, what's in the workflow with the LLM?
So I think the example you outlined is really, really cool. So congratulations on, that approach. Our approach is much more about getting down to brass tacks. And so what we do is we still strongly advocate for the concept of human in the loop. So what happens is we don't have another interface. You don't have to install another tool on the developer desktop. This is not a co-pilot where you have to highlight some code, right-click, and kind of prompt, the AI to kick in. What you do to activate our bot is quite simple. In the task management interface, so if you're using Jira, if you're using Azure DevOps, instead of assigning tasks that you normally would assign a human being, in the list of resources, one of our bots is going to show up. All right. And so you can just assign those tasks to our bots. And once they're done, go to bed, go eat lunch, go do whatever you want. And when you come back, you'll see a list of completed tasks. And this is where our human in the loop comes in. So the human's going to come in and they're going to do a pull request. And when they do that PR, they're either going to say, hey, the output looks really good. Great. They're going to say, nope, this isn't good. This isn't close. Send it back to the digital coworker to retry. Or the third one, which I think is the really most interesting part, is you can actually type in your comments what you want changed, what you didn't think was good, feed it back to Nova, and Nova will incorporate those changes. And the most important and interesting thing is that becomes a learning. And so the next time it runs into a similar situation, it will take that feedback and apply it. Now, if you take that scenario and you say, hey, if this is a human being, how much adherence do you get that, hey, they can understand that this feedback doesn't just apply to this particular test case, but to, the future test cases that fall into a similar pattern? probably not so well. You're going to see a number of times you have to keep repeating yourself to the human developer. In our case, our tests show that our bot will pick that learning up and always make sure that in the future run where it's a similar use case, whatever that feedback that the tech lead, the human being provided, is always incorporated. Up
Is
front,
this,
sorry, go ahead.
are you essentially, are you essentially fine tuning your model then? Is that what's
We're
happening?
not fine tuning.
Okay.
So from an architectural perspective, there's a couple of things that I think is worth calling out. So one, we're not a SaaS model. I think the industry is too new. And as we work with a lot of Fortune 500 companies, right, they're concerned about data privacy. They're concerned about sending their code that is part of their differentiation to a third party to do this kind of work and analysis. So what we do is we actually install our bot into a container, and then we launch that container into our client's cloud instance. So therefore, it's governed by all the privacy and all of the controls and measures that an enterprise is going to have. The second part of this is we're completely LLM agnostic, because that race, like who's going to be the better LLM, right now, it's kind of open, right? There's days and windows of time where Claude seems like to be the better LLM. Sometimes it's open AI. And we believe other LLMs are going to start creeping into this space. And so we've built our architecture to really make sure that regardless of which LLM you're on, regardless of which cloud you're on, you can run our bot and it'll take advantage of that. And you had asked a question earlier about RAG, and we use RAG same exact way. We have vector database, same similar architecture. We have an onboarding process. So for example, if you are a regulated industry, say life sciences, we can via RAG make sure that HIPAA compliance is always observed and checked for in the generation of the code, right?
Wow.
If you have your own internal corporate controls, coding standards, security standards, we use RAG to make sure that the output also follows those standards. And that's an upfront exercise. And again, the reason why we do that is the benchmark is if you brought on a new human being and you want them to follow all of these standards, there's a period of time where you're going to have to expect for them to have a learning curve, so to speak, to kind of incorporate all of those different specifications and standards and et cetera. You don't need to do that with ours. Like our bot, once you've configured it, it's ready to go and it'll spit out output that completely conforms. And you have that human in the loop to review all of the output at the very end to make sure that it is actually following the rules that you want it to. And if you say it doesn't, it will learn and it will make sure that it doesn't happen again.
Where does the learning persist, I guess is my question. So you have software that you're running, but you're not a SaaS model, right?
Yep.
So how do you actually deploy when you work with a customer? I mean, you bring a box into the situation, or how do you actually do that?
Yeah, so we deploy our software in a Docker container. And so that container can run in any of the major cloud providers. And within that container, we do have our own vector database to store these learnings. And so these learnings become our clients and our clients alone, right? Like, so a lot of our competitors are, you know, SaaS model because that's what the investment community wants from venture. And, you know, the problem is if I'm one of these enterprises, I don't know if these learnings are, I'm paying for it and you're benefiting your other clients. And maybe those clients is a competitor. So our architecture really makes sure that you're confident and you know for certain that what you're paying for, you get to keep. This is not going to benefit us. This is not going to benefit your competitors. And so for now, until there's more acceptance, more adoption, we think this is the better architecture to go with so that people are more confident in using agentic AI to tackle this type of problem.
Yeah, that's very clever. I have to say that's a very clever approach because, to your point, because you're deploying in their data center on-prem in their environment, your software is there, but the vector database that is then populated is theirs, and all those are for them. And this is important because, you know, I think the unwieldy part of the large language models is that they are so big, and so they're never going to be, I don't think, very good at getting something specifically correct every single time, or at least 90% of the time in a particular bespoke use case. And so that's where, you know, you see, again, either a RAG model that's very sophisticated, which is your approach. What do you think about small language models? Like some people are suggesting, and I think it's very interesting, that a small language model that's more purpose-built might work better for enterprise use cases. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think it comes down to philosophy. So, you know, about a year and a half ago, I'll make my point and I'll get to your question. there were very specific LLMs coming out from a company called like Hugging Face. It's supposed to be very geared towards software development. But as you fast forward over the last year to 18 months, you've really seen them not making as many advances as the general purpose LLMs. So OpenAI and Claude are advancing on that front much faster than the very, targeted and specific LLMs.
Right.
And I think for SLMs, it's the same thing. And so the way we look at it is whether you do SLMs, you do industry specific LLMs, whether you use general purpose LLMs, what we're betting on is there's going to be an infrastructure to this generative AI. And we're betting on those things are going to be taken care of by the hyperscalers and by the open AIs of the world. And we shouldn't be spending a whole lot of time trying to build our own data set, trying to do something that is already widely available out there and other players can do a better job. But we're focused on how do we translate that and harness it into results for our customers, right? And so, from my standpoint, there's certainly an approach of, and you hear it a lot, like it's all about the data. And you need to build your own SLM, and that's how you're going to differentiate. Okay, maybe, and that's good for our clients, but for us as a company, it's really what is the most efficient engine, the best possible engine that we can, sort of switch horses in between as they're continuing to get better one quarter after the other to produce outputs and outcome cheaply, faster, more predictably. And so I don't actually see an SLM really coming into play for the work that we're doing now. 12 months from now, maybe there is an SLM that comes in and we need to, kind of figure out how to incorporate that. But we've very intentionally built the architecture so that whether it's an SLM or an LLM, we can incorporate all of that for the benefit of our customers.
Yeah. Now that makes a lot of sense. I have to say, I think it's a very clever approach. We got just 1 minute left here. Auditing these things, auditing what your engine does. Is it log files? How do you keep track of what they do?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I said, the user interface is really you interact with it via, like a task management tool like Jira. But we do have an admin tool where you can see every single step of what our bot is doing. We do screen recordings. For example, we're doing automated test generation. We will record the screens of what the bot is actually doing. So you can audit it. You can look at traditional log files. So every step that the bot is going through is logged. It is completely stored, and you can access it anytime you want. So that is how we ensure that if there's something does go wrong, you have the ability to trace back to exactly what went wrong and figure out how to fix it.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I mean, I think this is a very clever approach that you've taken, and we're going to see. My theory is that many software companies are going to have to figure out where they fit in this new architecture, because you have to use these models, and they're so powerful. To not use them is kind of irresponsible. So the question becomes, how do you layer some responsibility around these engines? And it seems to me you guys have a very, very clever approach to that. Well, folks, look this gentleman up online, Andy Lin. It's Provoke Solutions. You're listening to DM Radio.
Great. Thank you.
All right, folks, back here on DM Radio, and we're talking to a gentleman in the print production business, but they don't just print magazines and 4-color paper and different things like this. These folks are actually printing to electronics using a very fascinating technology. I've got Patrick Heisler on the line from Scrona out of Switzerland. Patrick, welcome to the show. Tell us a bit about this new printing press that you've got and how this thing works.
Hi, Eric. Thank you for having me. Yeah, we are a startup out of Zurich in Switzerland, and we've developed this new printing technology, which is a little bit like Star Trek, where we're going away from a mechanical force that generates drops to an electric field that pulls drops out of a nozzle. And we put that all into a commercial package with 128 nozzles, which we're showcasing here at CES in Vegas. And we can use all kinds of things. It gives us super high flexibility. We're 100 times more precise than standard print technology. And we can print electronics. Yes, we can print conductive traces.
That's crazy. So 100 times more precise. And you said that you're using some sort of a magnetic field to do this. Is that right?
We use an electric field to do that.
Electric.
And the magic is inside the printhead, really, because electric fields try to get anywhere, right? You generate an electric field, it spreads in the room, And we have developed a shielding technology that we put into this printhead that we can individually control each and every nozzle and have this very, very high precision in generating these drops and guiding these drops with nanometer precision to the substrate.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So like what was the lead up? What innovations had you already done that allowed you to get to this point?
So the technology is actually around in labs since 20 years plus, right? It's not something very, very new, but what we did is we brought it into the 21st century by going from glass nozzles into semiconductor technology. We use a semiconductor production line to produce these printheads, and this gives us this high density and high control over the nozzles.
That's very interesting. And then there's software that goes along with this, I'm presuming, right? And you use the software to design what you're actually going to print. How, are you able to use the kinds of technologies that they use to, for example, map out motherboards and do things of this nature? I guess CAD is one of the techniques or one of the technologies. Tell us about how you can design something to then be printed by this thing.
It's super simple actually. So there's plenty of software around, and we have a modular system. We provide a modular system that just plugs into existing printing or manufacturing tools and tool chains, where we provide the modules to run our printheads based on standard software. We help our customers. We have an application lab in Zurich. We're now opening up another application lab in Taiwan to be closer to our Asian customers to help them set up the process, get to learn the technology, get firsthand experience, get the hands on the technology, because it's completely new. It's a little bit different than standard technology. But other than that, it's integrated relatively easily into standard printing tools and manufacturing tools.
That's interesting. And you call this micromanufacturing, right? Because people, I think people are
Yes.
now, they're familiar with these with these new, I can't remember the name of them, but they're printers that can build like houses and things, and it's just very precise nozzles as well, doing everything from concrete to paint to whatever. But this is even much more precise than that, right? In terms of how granular it can get.
Yes. So we're printing on hair. So we've shown to print a digital image on a single hair, right? So this is the kind of precision that we're having here. It's a completely different level, and it's enabling all of these new kinds of technologies that we see here at CES. The wearables, the smartwatches, the earphones, the next generation super AR contact lenses, but also the AI chips, the life science stuff. Everything needs this kind of micrometer precision assembly and manufacturing.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're innovating at a foundational layer for manufacturing, meaning you're literally opening up new doors for how to produce electronic products and ones that are very fine. I was talking to a gentleman yesterday they develop solar panels, but they're not for the sun. They're panels that take light just from ambient light, from lights in an office tower, and they use those to power sensors and other, low electric use cases, but that would require batteries either way, or if you didn't have this. And he told me some crazy stat like we're throwing away 70 million disposable batteries every day. I was like, every day? It's crazy. So what's cool is that your innovations feed into a whole ecosystem of possibilities for companies that want to do new cool technologies like that, right?
Exactly. And also on the manufacturing side, we're throwing away a lot of energy and material, and we're wasting a lot of pure water down the way. Like standard manufacturing technology we use today to do these micrometer structures use up to 22 steps in to just generate one piece, right? We are reducing that to just two simple steps, printing and curing. And
Huh.
that saves around 98% of material waste. If you consider all of the chemicals you need to etch away material, to clean substrates, to do all this subtractive processing that we do today to generate these devices, this is really a milestone in manufacturing technology, to go to an additive manufacturing technology that only puts material where you need it at the spot where it's required.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So how many clients do you have roughly? And they're all over the world, right?
They're all over the world. We are working with several clients to integrate our technology into their production lines, into their tools, and it's really a platform technology, right? So this is kind of a self-accelerating thing. Once we're integrated into a platform, a manufacturing platform of one of our customers, they're spreading the word, they're distributing these machines and are kind of giving us more reach into the manufacturing world.
Yeah, I mean, before we started recording this, I told you I had a whole past history, a past life in print production. My first job out of college was at a newspaper, and we had our own stat camera. It was like the size of a small room, and you would use these knobs to go back and forth to get the right percentage size you wanted of the dot, to get the print, so it would print on the newspapers, right? Like photographs, basically. And I remember probably 9 years after that, one of my suppliers, a provider down in New Orleans, Louisiana, he went out and bought one of the very first digital presses. It was a Heidelberg. It was like $1 million, and it was amazing. You didn't need any film, right? You went from requiring film to go on a traditional printing press to just printing straight to paper. It looked really, really good, but not nearly as refined as what you're doing. And now we're at a layer that is orders of magnitude more precise and more granular. And you can so you can use any number of materials that you're actually printing on these boards, right?
Exactly. And Eric, I like that example a lot, because when you look at digital printing today, maybe 10 years ago, you wouldn't have imagined that inkjet printing would go into like the newspaper printing as we see it today. Like everybody would have just called you whatever, right? A lunatic for that. But we're doing the same here for electronic manufacturing. We do digital printing for electronic manufacturing, going away from these huge $50 million setups that require a lot of capex, pre-investment, that are very inflexible and need high utilization rates, to a fully digital production line, which is highly flexible, which is OpEx driven. So it's really a game changer in electronics manufacturing.
Yeah, and we got about a minute and 10 seconds left. I'll say I just love that you are again enabling this whole next generation of innovators, because to your point, in the old way, it's very costly. And so the risk is high, and therefore the reward needs to be very high in order to warrant the process. But now the risk is low, and so you don't have to get that massive of a reward to get a return on investment, right? So that is just going to catapult microelectronics to a whole new era. What do you think, real quick?
That's exactly what we're thinking. And it also gives us the option to bring manufacturing back to our countries, right? So especially for national security related issues, we can manufacture these parts at site, on premise, in space, on site in our countries. So it's a really game changing technology for them.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, you're here at CES, so good luck on the show floor today. I'm sure you have lots of interested parties. I think there's only about 150,000 people walking around, so it's not too crowded. Listen,
Thank you,
thanks for your
Eric.
time. Look this gentleman up online, Patrick Heisler. The company is Scrona, SCRONA.com. You are listening to DM Radio.